The Declaration of Independence. With the success that the colonists had had in the first year of the war, primarily forcing the English to evacuate Boston in March of 1776, and the publication of Thomas Paine's Common Sense convincing more colonists to support the cause, the Second Continental Congress set to work to declare independence from England. They selected members of their group, the Committee of Five, to draw up a document that would announce to the world why they were leaving England. Because this was thought to be a minor job, the older members of the committee gave the task to Thomas Jefferson, a Virginian who was the youngest on the committee. In writing the document, Jefferson drew on the words of a number of Enlightenment thinkers, but more than anyone else, it was John Locke's words that rang in his ear. Locke, along with Jean-Jacques Rousseau, believed in the idea of the social contract, that citizens willingly gave up some of their rights to the government in order for that government to protect the rights of all. As long as the government continues to uphold its end of the bargain and protects the rights of all, then the people have nothing to fear from the government. If, however, the government prevents the people from executing their rights, then according to Locke, the contract between the people and the government is broken, and the people have the right and the responsibility to make a new government. There are 5 sections to the Declaration: the introduction, the preamble, the body, which can easily be divided into 2 sections, and the conclusion. In the introduction, Jefferson discussed why what would be the United States of America by the end of the document was going to break away from England. He stated that the rest of the document would list the reasons why it was required, quote, that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. The preamble of the Declaration then discusses the philosophy behind the document, which is where much of the language of John Locke and other thinkers of the Enlightenment come into play. Jefferson argued that there were certain rights that were self-evident, meaning that they were obvious to everyone without explanation. Among these rights were life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The word among suggested that these were not the only 3 rights that were self-evident, but by stating them, Jefferson identified these as perhaps the most important. Because of the social contract that Locke and Rousseau believe existed between a people and their government, Jefferson made sure to include the concept that a government has a responsibility to protect these rights, and if the government refuses, then the people have the right and responsibility to alter or abolish it and create new government. The first of the 2 body sections describes the long train of abuses and usurpations that King George III placed on the colonists. Jefferson went through everything that the king had done, including his suspension of the colonial assemblies from the Intolerable Acts, for forcing colonists to allow soldiers into their homes, and for not allowing colonists to trade with the rest of the world. The second body section describes how at each point the colonists asked for King George to stop what was happening, and how at each point he refused. This probably had more to do with the taxes that were imposed on the colonists, that whenever Parliament repealed one set of taxes, they were quick to replace them with another set. Jefferson also discussed the colonial efforts to let not just the government of England, but the English people themselves of why the colonists had taken the steps they had to this point and why they were now moving to independence. Jefferson finished up the Declaration with the conclusion that based on all of the evidence that he listed, that, quote, these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. Realizing that those members of the Second Continental Congress that signed the document were committing open treason against the English king, Jefferson felt it necessary to make sure that the world knew these people were pledging their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. Just because the Committee of Five had now written the document, the job of declaring independence was not finished. The entire Second Continental Congress had to approve the words of Jefferson and the group, which they did on July 2nd, 1776, which future President John Adams predicted would be the day Americans celebrated as Independence Day. But the final document was not approved and sent to the printer for publication until July 4th, which is now why we now celebrate that day as our Independence Day.